Everyone to day 2 of TheiaCon. I think we look back at a great day number 1 with a lot of interesting session, and we're looking forward to the second part today. Glad to have you all back today. It's my great honor to also kick off the day number 2. In case you wonder why my talks are always in the first session, and my task is also to greet the audience, and that combines well. So I'm lucky with that. So let me get to my talk today, and let me share my slides. All right. Now, today, I would like to give a demonstration. It's actually a big live demonstration. The title of my talk is Beyond Coding, the Ultimate AI Native IDE Demo with Theia AI. The background for this talk is, as I mentioned yesterday, we have so many features and cool things that we can do with Theia AI and the AI native Theia IDE. And yesterday, in the project news, none of that actually fit in. So I decided to submit a second talk where I don't put up any slides, but just show you the demonstrations. So the purpose of this talk is really to show live demos and give you an impression how these technologies work in practice. In fact, I only have 3 slides. And the good news is this is even one of them. So I have only one introductory slide, and then I will directly dive into the demo. And sorry if I forgot that. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jonas, working for EclipseSource. We are a company building tools and IDEs in recent years, especially AI native tools and IDEs for all sorts of domains. All right. Now, what am I talking or what am I demonstrating today? By the way, I forgot. I just added that I learned yesterday that when I prepared these slides, we had 20,000 stars on GitHub, and now we have 21,000. So I quickly updated that while waiting until the conference begins. All right. So a quick introduction. So you know the slide from yesterday, but I quickly want to repeat it, mainly to introduce to you what I will demo today. So remember, there are 4 different parts in the Theia project. We have the platform to build tools and IDEs. We have the IDE delivered by the same project that is a downloadable, installable product for developers built on the platform that you can use for coding. And then the 2 new parts, Theia AI, which is a framework to build AI native tools and IDEs, and the AI native Theia IDE, which is an extended version of the IDE with a lot of AI features. Now, the last thing is what I'm going to demo mainly today, but the connection there is something that I would like to explain. Now, it's always hard to demonstrate a framework. So if you wanted to demonstrate Theia AI, I don't want to talk about APIs too much. So I always need a tool to show you what it can do. And the Theia IDE is a perfect tool to demo the framework. And the reason is it implements a lot of features, so it uses a lot of framework capabilities. But there's a second special thing. In the Theia IDE, we decided to expose a lot of the flexibility and customizability of the framework. And what that means, for example, in the Theia IDE, users are capable of creating new agents. They can adopt prompts. They can use tools on the fly. So all these things that the framework makes very easy for tool builders, in the Theia IDE, even end users can do that. Now, what's important to keep in mind, if you want to build your own tool based on Theia AI, for example, a domain-specific tool, you might not want to expose this full flexibility and freedom because that might overwhelm regular users. But for software developers, which is the target group of the Theia IDE, we thought, okay, let's give them maximum flexibility so that they can play with it and they can innovate and automate their own workflows on the fly. And that's why the Theia IDE is also a perfect demonstrator for the framework. So in a sense, what I will do today is I will demo the framework and the IDE at the same time because it's very overlapping. And with that, let me dive into the demonstration. So we are already done with slide number 2. As you can guess, I only have one outro slide left. All right, so this is the Theia IDE. The first thing, pretty standard one that I would like to demonstrate is how to generate code with Theia Coder. Let me add the first prompt. So it says, Coder, create a calculator app as a node-based web application in TypeScript. Now, I'm currently running Coder in agent mode. What that essentially means is Coder is now capable of directly writing files without my approval, and it will do so for quite a while. So we see here it already starts to write some files. And once it has actually written those files, it will also trigger a compiler. It will iterate on the changes and so on. Let me now stop this. Now, the reason, and that might be disappointing, in 95% of the cases, when I let this run through, it will produce a working result. However, if we run TheiaCoder in agent mode, and because it iterates on the changes and it really focuses on quality, it will run quite a while, 5 to 10 minutes, maybe even. And that would be already half of my demo time. And for this reason, I will stop this now. And I promise this is the only part in my demonstration where I will kind of cheat. Keep in mind, I forgot to mention that on the intro slide, when doing AI demonstration, that's always a risk that something goes wrong. So bear with me if any of the demos fail. All right, so let me close all this. We can see it already started to generate parts of the application, but I've stopped that now. What I will do instead is I will now reset my workspace to a state that I generated beforehand. So promise this is fully generated, but I did it beforehand to not lose any more time. And also I wanted to make sure that the application basically does what I want, because otherwise the remaining parts of the demo would be pretty hard. But the cool thing is to reset to this state, I will also use AI. And I want to show you a nice feature in the Theia IDE for that. So down here in terminal, I could now write the correct git command to reset to the latest state. But I don't know what about you, but I often forget git commands. What I can do instead here is I can press Control I, and I can use natural language to tell the Theia IDE what I want to do. And what I tell here is reset the repo to the latest committed state. And now AI is working to generate a command for me. That looks reasonable. I can directly insert that and now execute that. And as we can see, I think there's one. Yeah, this is a leftover because it doesn't delete files. And now we have a clean state again. Now let me quickly show you that. I will not dive into the details of the code. So here we have the source file, and for example, here we have a calculator one, and here's all the generated code. Nice documented. That's cool. Now I will show you the second mode of Coder now, and that's the edit mode. That is very useful for applying iterative changes on something existing. And also, one very nice thing about the edit mode is it doesn't run that long because it doesn't validate the changes, it doesn't compile. So it's possible for me to demo that. To change that, what I can do is I can go to the AI agent settings page, and here we have all the agents. You can see there are quite a few. And then I select Coder, and in here I can select the variant, and I go back to the edit mode of Coder. Now what this will change is Coder will now only suggest changes, but not directly write them to my disk. And now what I could do is I could write another prompt over here. But what I want to show you is we also have an inline chat, which can directly provide additional context to the coding agent. So for example, what I can do here is I can say ask AI or press Control I. And then I can say, for example, hey, Coder, add documentation to this code. Now, as you can see, the conversation is transferred to the chat, but it adds this variable here that tells Coder exactly what I selected. So it is aware of the current context where I prompted this from. This is not necessary, but if you want to do something with a particular part in the code, that's very useful. All right, now let's look at these changes. Let me close this and make this a little bit, I'm sorry, a little bit smaller. Or actually, let me zoom out a bit. Sorry, I'm in the wrong tab. Yeah. So here we can see now Coder added documentation to our code. Of course, this is a very simple change, but as you can imagine, with the power of the LLMs, it could do something more difficult, of course, too. All right, and then down here, I can decide whether I want to accept this change or decline. I will not accept this change because it's just documentation. But this is basically the second mode of Coder. And as mentioned, I could, of course, do more complicated things. I could even generate this full calculator app in edit mode. There's no difference there, but then I would need to review and accept the changes before I can, for example, compile. In agent mode, it can directly do that, and it typically creates a more high quality result, but it, of course, runs longer. All right, now to not worry you anymore, let me quickly now build this application and show you what it actually does. Of course, it would also be possible to let the agent run these commands that I currently run, but that's a little bit faster because I know exactly what I want to do. And now we see it's running on localhost 3000. And let me bring up a browser and show you, okay, this is my calculator app, fully generated by AI. And for example, I can do a calculation here. Looks perfect. All right, now let's dive into a little bit of real development. So what would you do typically as a developer? Now let's imagine I'm actually working for TheiaCon, the TheiaCon company, and I developed this calculator for whatever reason. Now what would be wrong with this application? Is it already perfect or do I need to tweak something? One thing that I immediately notice is the AI selected an arbitrary color set, right? Looks pretty nice, but it doesn't fit TheiaCon at all. So what I want to show you next is how to basically incorporate the corporate identity of TheiaCon into this application, and even how to make this adaptation persistent for any future code generation. Now, to do that, what I do is I go to the Theia website first, because I want to grab the TheiaCon logo, because that kind of defines the corporate identity. So let me take a quick screenshot here, just like this. And now let me go back to my IDE. And now what I will do is I will start a new chat session. I could directly talk to Coder, but what I want to do instead now is I will talk to another agent that is called Architect. Now the difference is Architect cannot directly write code, but its purpose is to analyze coding tasks and prepare them for Coder. And if you ever worked with coding agent in practice, if tasks become a little bit more complex, this is a very efficient way to increase the precision and also lower the failure rate, because you can actually review a prompt or a description of a task before you actually finally give it to Coder, especially when you work in agent mode, because then the generation takes quite a while. So what I will prompt here is, Architect, look at the attached picture, define my corporate identity. I need to fix my current application. We want to extract the colors and not use the logo. And then I will just paste the image here. We saw that yesterday already, that Theia AI, of course, supports images. Now we see the LLM looks at the picture. It extracts the pages. And now it also looks at my project. And what it defines now, because it's prompted that way, is a precise description on what to change in my project to stick to this particular corporate identity. Now, I have the description now here. So the question is now, how do I get this to my coding agent? One way would be I could write another chat message addressing Coder now, but a workflow that is much more reliable is to create a task context. And to do that, there's an action here which says summarize the session as a task for Coder. Now, the action that I just triggered, and we can see up here that it's currently running, it sends the conversation to the LLM again and says, okay, now please extract a structured description of the task in a specific format that is well defined. And that's a format we experimented actually with that works quite well as an input for coding agent. And in a second, this description or this prompt for the coding agent will be extracted even to a file, as you can see here. And the nice thing about this is I can review this now even before I generate some code. Now, for simple tasks, this is of course overhead, but for example, for this task, I could check whether the colors are really correct because I see them here. And only if I really want this, I can now press enter over here and now actually task the coding agent to apply these changes. Another huge advantage of this is if something goes wrong now with the generation, I can just take this file and run the generation again. So it enables a very simple redo. So all in all, a big recommendation if you not use this concept of externalized prompts. This is kind of supported in any tool, including, of course, the Theia AI. All right. Now it has done some changes. I will not review them. Let me just apply them and basically just go back to my calculator app and reload. And boom, we see, okay, now our calculator app looks very much like TheiaCon, which is great. However, we want to go beyond coding in this demonstration. Now, what's the remaining issue? remaining issue could be if we now task another or if we now create another task for our coding agent, it might not perfectly stick to the styles that we just selected because it's actually unaware of them. It might derive that from the existing CSS, but that's not super reliable. So what I want to do is somehow want to generically teach my coding agent that what my colors are. And for this purpose, we support a concept called project info. Now, project info is again a markdown file that lives in our project workspace and describes our project. Like, for example, here it describes the structure, it describes how to build the project. In a nutshell, it's a README for LLMs, which contains the concise information about the project. And now, currently, it doesn't contain any styling guideline, but I want to add it to this file. And there would be several ways. We even have a dedicated agent to do that. But to keep it simple, what I will do is, because I already have the colors here in my chat, I will use an action that I prepared that you find here that I call update project context. Now, what this says is, please analyze the current conversation. If there are any project-specific information, if so, please add them to the project info. So in a nutshell, or a simplified way of describing this is, hey, please remember what was important. And now what I will do is, you might notice this is, again, a markdown file. But one cool thing is in Theia that I can use markdown files as prompts too. And I can do so by using the prompts variable. And here I can now select the name of this markdown file, update project context, and just hit enter. Now what this will do, this command here, it will basically paste this text as a user message. So basically I've just prompted what I described here. And we can see it analyzed that correctly. It says, okay, brand identity, corporate colors, and now it worked on adding these to the project info. And let me quickly show you that. We now here have a new section in our project info. And let me accept that to make this persistent. And now to prove to you that the behavior of my coding agent now generically changed, I can now ask Coder which primary color is used in this project. And I add here the important thing, do not research. So I don't want it to look at any files because I want to show you that the coding agent is now aware of this. And we see that here, okay, a bright blue color. So it's obviously aware of this information and it would not or it will not need to research this again. All right, now let me switch to the next part. So let's assume our application is perfect now. We want to deliver it. What do we need to do before deploying it? We need to, of course, test it. And as Philip already showed yesterday, we have a app tester agent in the Theia IDE that I wanted to demonstrate to you. But before we do that, let me actually introduce a bug in the application. And for the sake of simplicity, let me actually use the same bug that Philip used yesterday. Oh, sorry, I need to go to the calculator. So here the calculation is happening, and then what I will do is I will change the case multiplication. So it actually does a addition, which is of course pretty mean. And now let me quickly rebuild the application to make this bug persistent and start it again. And now what I do next is I task the app tester agent, test my calculator app running on localhost 3000, focus on multiplication. Now it asks me whether I want to start the Playwright MCP server. That's the technology that we use to interact with the browser. So it basically provides an API for this agent that allows it to control the browser and execute the tests. And I want to do that. So Playwright servers are started. And now in a second, we will be able to observe how the agent starts the test. It actually opened on my second screen, so let me move that over here. Right, and now it will invent test cases. We'll probably start with a simple multiplication and hopefully very easily identify some bug. Now, while this is running, let me already explain the last part of my demonstration. Now, what this will do is it will test the application, and when it found something, it will just print that out in the chat, which is useful. But when we talk about beyond coding and automation and workflows, the real workflow would actually be to directly report these issues somewhere, right? And by the way, we found the first bug, so let me actually stop this now. So what I want to show you now is how can I adapt this particular agent in a way that it is capable of directly reporting bugs on my GitHub repository. And if you look at the clock, we only have 4 minutes left, but I'm confident that I can actually do that. All right, so let me close this. That was actually not a good idea. I need this. I will bring it back once it's time. Okay, so the first thing that I will do is I will open the prompt of our app tester. So that's the agent that was just testing here. And we can see there's quite some content in here. But what's interesting here is the workflow down here. And in step 4, it currently says, document results, provide details, results with screenshots, and so on. Now, what I will do is I will remove this, and I will replace this with my new own version. And that says, in case you find an issue, delegate to bug reporter using this function. So I enable this agent and tell this agent, hey, if you find a bug, delegate to another agent. Now, the second step is this other agent is not even existing. So I need to create that. And let me quickly do that. In the Theia IDE, you can very easily create agents on the fly. I just click here. And then I just need to provide my agent with a name, just like this. Let me close this. And now we can see we have a new agent here. And of course, we need to somehow define the purpose of this agent. So what we see here is the system prompt. This is the example system prompt. And what I prepared, and I will not bore you too much with the details, is a prompt for a bug reporting agent. Essentially, it describes the template used that shall be used for bug reports. It also describes the repository here. Now, there's one thing missing. Now, this agent needs to be able to access GitHub. And for that, I need to provide it access to functions to talk to GitHub. And for this, I will use MCP again. In our AI configuration view, we have a tab MCP service. And here I see all the MCP servers that I've currently installed. And here's one that can connect to GitHub. So what I do is I just copy the ID of that and paste that here. And now this agent is actually capable of talking to GitHub just by pasting this ID. Okay, so I'm ready to run the demo now. What I need to do, though, is I need to get another window where I can actually show you that. Okay, just like this. Okay, application is still running. And now what I do is I use another nice feature. I can just prompt the same thing again and basically branching off the first conversation. All right, now let me move that over again and let's see what happens. All right, testing simple multiplication again. This is the part where I can relax because it's just doing its thing, hopefully. Okay, now it's clicking 3. So expected result would be 6. But it's 5. So issue found. Okay, let's observe what it does. Now we can see it behaves differently. What it does now, it is calls the other agent that I just created. And we can even observe exactly what's happening in here. This is now talking to GitHub and reporting this bug. And the final thing that I want to show is now if I click here and move this over, I'm sorry, lost a little bit the windows. Okay, this is the bug that was just created. It's opened now by me. And what we can see, it's perfectly following my defined template. It's describing very much in detail. So any human developer that now needs to pick this up would be very happy, I guess, with this description because it's just very much detailed. All right. With that, I want to close on the demo. Now, let me mention, it would now be, of course, very simple to also automate the workflow to automatically get this bug report into the context again and task coder with a fix. Okay, that would be kind of a similar automation that I just did, and I even recorded a YouTube video about this particular use case. Just for time reasons, I will not show this now. All right, let me close off. So what are the takeaways of my talk? Be aware there are much more demos like the one that I just did available on YouTube. So we really recorded a lot of demonstrations to show what's possible with the technology. So definitely check out our YouTube page. And of course, if you like those videos, subscribe and leave a like. Now, more serious takeaways. It really depends on your role. If you're a developer and you're looking for a coding environment, try the Theia IDE. It's very flexible, it's powerful, it's very transparent in the way that it works, and many people like it for exactly that reason. It's easy to understand why it works or why it, for example, doesn't work. So definitely give that a look. We are happy for any feedback, and we receive a lot of feedback currently. We're very thankful for that. And use the flexibility to adapt it to your own needs, to your own projects, to your own domains, and of course, contribute if you want to optimize it even further. And finally, if you're a developer, also check out the concept of type coding. I show parts of it, for example, the work with the task context. That's a methodology we're working on to give more structure to AI coding. As a company, evaluate the Theia IDE. It might be a good fit for your development department. And of course, as a tool builder, use the technology to build your own tools. If you need help with that, get in contact with us or the other companies providing support, or check out the project, the documentation, and let us know if you need any help. And with that, I'm done in time. Luckily, everything worked. Thank you for watching this demonstration, and I'm happy to take any questions.
You do. You have quite a bit of questions.
Oh.
Starting off from Matthew, there's actually two questions, so I'll start with one. While the platform is free as an open source, it means we are buying the AI platform, be it cloud or open AI or any other, excluding local LLMs. How much does it cost typically to DIBE all day long?
Okay, so maybe a comment on that. Another thing that I didn't mention, Theia AI and the Theia IDE are both completely LLM independent. So you can connect to any LLM of your choice. I was using cloud hosted from Anthropic in this demo. You can use any other service too, including local LLMs. And as a company or as a person, that gives you the freedom to even host these things on premise or even locally. The only downside is, of course, the smaller the model get, the less powerful they are in terms of AI coding. And about the cost, not much. So it really, I mean, if you run it in agent mode for quite a while, you produce, I don't know, $3-4 a day, but it's surprising how low the costs are actually. And if you really produce something productive, they're typically worth it. And you can monitor them closely.
Awesome, thank you. Second part, regarding agents, do you have any blog posts or anything showing the security permissions that are handled? Example, am I allowing the agent to create a file, edit a file, run npx, run Java, run GCC, run RM, RF, etc., etc.?
Yeah. So we are very transparent in which functions are exposed to the agent, and functions are the way that agents can actually even work with external system. So for all agents, you can review the functions that it has. You can remove them even. And we also have an additional layer where you can configure the functions, whether they can be always executed or only on explicit approval. So you can configure an agent in a way that you will be asked if it wants to write a file. But if you're worried about file access in particular, I suggest edit mode, because in edit mode, it can only suggest changes and not directly write. About task execution or command line execution, so most agents cannot directly trigger terminal commands, but we work with tasks. So the tasks that are, for example, defined in package.json, but even then you can turn this off, or you can review them when the agent wants to trigger them. So I think we are very flexible on how much control you want to keep up till you need to approve everything.
Okay, and I'll just give you one more question, but there is a few more in the chat whenever you have a second, Jonas, to go in and answer them, just so we stay on time. But which LLM are used for the different agents?
You can configure that. I can actually show you that just very quickly. So for every agent, you can select the LLM that is used. So for example, for Coder, for Bug Reporter, it was 4.0. And it's a pretty new feature that is very useful. We also support aliases. So this, for example, is set to default code. And here you can actually see what default code means. That's Sonnet 4.5 for me. But I could generically change this to something else. I don't know, CodeStrawl or whatever. And you can do this for different aliases. So you have a very fine-grained control on which coding agents you want. And from practice, we have like a lot of developers that even switch sometimes between models depending on the task.